Hare Krishna, we request all the kids to be inside in the room. So upstairs.
614.
Then everybody, mothers also will go, right? No, it's too far to. They can all be inside. So who will engage them? Any volunteers? Kids friendly volunteers.
I'll try.
Although you can say. You are new coming first time. Local we have to do. Mother, you can sit down. Hey Raman, Ramu, if you go, you have to engage everybody.
Okay, I'm out.
We want to make sure when lecture is going on, we don't want kids to come in, go out. When they come in, let's stop them there. Make sure they don't make any sound.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki Jai Prabhupada Jai Radha Madhava Vrinda Bihari Kunja Krishna 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 Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Om Namaste Krishna Nirvase Sasuyavadi Paschatya Vesitaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhagavatanam Svaita Gadadhar Sivasari Uda Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Ram. Vaishnava culture places much importance on glorifying, honoring, worshiping great saints. More so than we actually emphasize on the Lord. Why do we put more emphasis on glorifying and honoring great saints, sages, sadhus, holy men, acharyas, spiritual teachers? Why? Because they carry the message of the Lord. They teach by their personal example and by their words the path of truth, the path of Dharma, path of Sanatana Dharma, the eternal path. And therefore, when one who honors the great saints actually honors the Lord, and one who honors the Lord without honoring the great saints does not honor the Lord. So we can see, and Vaishnava culture is saturated, or we might say full, of celebrations that honor great personalities. And today is one such day. What is that day? Today is two very prominent personalities. One is actually an energy of the Supreme Lord, Sri Gadadhar Pandit, and the other one is Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He is considered the grandfather of the Hare Krishna movement in the Western world. Today is the appearance day of Gadadhar Pandit and the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Bhakti Vinod Thakur was a pioneer in bringing Krishna consciousness to the Western world. His life is quite interesting and quite, magnificent in the sense that he came from a Shakta background. He was worshipping the energies of the Lord, Shaktis. In Indian culture, or when you say Vedic culture, there are practically four prominent types of worship. The impersonalists, the Shaktas, the Vaishnavas, and there's one more. I can't think. So these are the three main ones anyway. And so, but in his early years, not early years, mid-years, he actually came across a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then he just changed his whole outlook. And he really started to revolutionize. He was a member of a group called the Vajraloka in Bengal. The Vajralokas were persons who were somewhat, what we say, scholars, academicians, great thinkers, who had formed an assembly to somehow bridge the gap between East and West, bringing Eastern teachings to the Western mentality in such a way that they were understandable. Bhakti Vinod Thakur had somewhat of a start in his preaching mission in the Vajraloka. And then he gave it up when he found that he could no longer make any progress there because they were so much mostly on academics and not so much on bhakti. And so his life is quite exemplary. We center a lot of our worship around his teachings and especially his songs. The song we just sang, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Gopi Jana Balava Giri Radadari Soda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari, is actually written by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, has explained that this song is the complete description of God. You want to know what God is? This is the complete description. He is Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalava Giri Varadari Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari. These are descriptions of Krishna's Leelas, pastimes, and his relationships with his devotees in Sri Vrindavan Dham. In other words, this is the highest expression of the definition and description of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. People worship the Lord on various levels of understanding, such as Vishnu, Narayan, and the various manifestations and incarnations. But the Supreme Personality of God, Ishwar Parama Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adi Govinda Sarva Karna Karna. Sri Brahma Samhita glorifies the actual position of the Supreme Lord as Krishna. Govinda, he's also known as Govinda. He is Sarva Karna Karnam. There are two kinds of causes, the remote causes and the immediate cause. The immediate cause is what we see, or the remote cause is the source of all the other causes, and that is Krishna. Everything that is happening can be traced back to the Supreme Lord. Actually, when we understand the truth of reality, we'll understand that there is nothing outside of Krishna. There's only two aspects of existence that you may divide reality into, and that is called the source and the energy. Krishna is the source, and he is also the source of the energy also. He is the original initiator of all existence, and he makes everything happen through his various energies. Hare Krishna. And so, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, in his teachings and his writings, he was a visionary. He was a visionary in the sense that one time he looked in the direction of Sridham Mayapur, which was the birthplace of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the appearance of place of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he saw something quite extraordinary. And what did he see? That was so.
Can everybody get up? They got to take up the mat. You want all the Prabhus to come this way? Thank you. Now you all can. And kids can go inside, please. If they make any disturbance, they should go inside in the room.
Okay. The room is balanced this way. There's a big open space that I'm looking at. Ladies can come up also if you like.
Mataji's come closer.
We're vegetarian, don't worry. And so for those of you who have just come in, we're also speaking about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's today his disappearance day. He was a visionary. One day, it wasn't a dream. He looked in the area where now we know is the appearance place, birthplace, Janmastan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he saw something extraordinary. It wasn't a dream, it was a vision, and in the vision he saw people from all the races, Jai, singing and dancing together, saying Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana. After seeing this amazing vision, he understood that someday, the whole world will be chanting Hare Krishna and glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this was back in the late 1890s. So of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote one book called Teachings and Precepts of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's a small book. Maybe some of you have it or seen it. It's about 96 pages. And in it describes just some of the basic principles of Lord Chaitanya's appearance and his main teachings. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had that book printed, and he sent it to many of the universities, prominent universities around the world. And later on, during the ISKCON time when Srila Prabhupada appeared, devotees found one copy in McGill University in Canada. Later on, we understood that this book not only went to McGill University, but went to many prominent universities around the world. And it's extraordinary because that year was the year of Srila Prabhupada's appearance, 1896. So the person who would take the teachings of Lord Chaitanya around the world and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the form of the book appeared at the same time. So what does that say? It says that this ISKCON movement is not some accident. It's not started by some person. It's actually ordained by God himself. This is the beauty of Krishna consciousness as given by Srila Prabhupada. This is an extension of Lord Krishna's mission in the world to purify the entire world. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a forerunner like that. He wrote so many books. It says he wrote at least 100 books, periodicals, and made so many speeches on the lives and teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not much known outside of Bengal. People, especially people in South India and other places, didn't have an understanding of his position. And they thought maybe he was a great saint, or maybe he's in some very super powerful personality. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his teachings made it clear that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, appearing in this world to bring what is called the Yuga Dharma. The Yuga Dharma is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life was very much centered around the time when the British had somewhat of a strong influence in India. And this was in the early 1900s. Late 1800s, and even of course in the early 1900s. He was a magistrate. He was a prominent magistrate, and he was respected by the British Raj, so much so that he was actually given a position of a high court judge, not only a magistrate, but he was a high court judge. And because of his expertise and his service to the British government, they actually built a railway that went right past his house and added an extra train car onto the train that passed by his house specifically for his comfort. And the British honored him very much. And although, you know, we might have our opinions about the British, Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw that the British did not interfere with the religion so much, and so he accepted British rule. Of course, that's quite controversial. But therefore, in his work, he was so expert that what other magistrates would take so much time to rule a case, he could do it in a few minutes. He had such spiritual power that simply by seeing the people who come into his courtroom, he would make the decision. He could tell whether they were guilty or innocent or what the actual truth was. And so he did his work in half or even less than half the time that other magistrates did. He was such a respected and very powerful personality. His writings are quite amazing. He's written a lot of books that are very relevant to our practice of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we say, and quite often we say, that actually Krishna consciousness is a science. Now, what does science mean? Science means you take a set of principles and you apply it in a very practical way and you get a particular result. Science is not theory and hypothesis, that's the beginning. Science must show proof. If something is not proven by the scientific experiment, it is not considered to be science. It has to actually show the proof of the things that one is applying. So Krishna consciousness is a science. What is that science? To awaken the soul's eternal loving relationship with Krishna through a process of executing activities in relationship to the Lord. And those activities fall into two categories: things to do and things to avoid. And if one carefully and systematically, and of course regularly, applies these principles, naturally one will get the result. What is the result? Prema Bhumarta Mahan. One will get love of God, which is the eternal constitutional position of all living beings. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote one book called Jaiva Dharma. If you haven't read it, please read it. It's available. The Gaudiya Math also made a printing of it, but ISKCON has done their own printing of it, which I think is much more complete and easier to, what we say, read. And it describes in detail, using what is called a type of polemics where there is guru and disciple discussion. And that in that guru-disciple discussion, the entire philosophical teachings and the practice is carefully analyzed and explained in such a way that it becomes understandable. And that's called Jaiva Dharma. Jaiva, Jaiva Dharma. So when Srila Prabhupada wanted us to read that book, he said this is a book that must be read by all our devotees. See, if we stay on the platform of sentiment, we will always be confused. We have to be guided by knowledge. Knowledge is a light. It's the direction in which sentiment is guided. If sentiment is not guided by philosophy, it becomes simply sentimental or fanatical. So philosophy, knowledge, what we say principles, are the foundation for awakening bhakti. And when bhakti is awakening, then naturally it is in itself self-contained. But knowledge is the principle that guides one in practical activities to awaken one's bhakti. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was really fundamental in bringing philosophical teachings to the Western world. Now he was, at a time, there was a lot of controversy in India at that time. There were many groups who claimed to be followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there was 13 main groups: Baul, Adi, Saki Bedi, Bao, Garanganagari, Nityananda Vamsa, what is it? Jat Goswamis, so many. They were called Sampradayas. They were not bona fide. They had come on their own speculation, but claiming to be what we say, true followers of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya. And so he had to fight against that. He wrote many books. There's a beautiful story. Like there was a discussion between what is more higher, Brahmins or Vaishnavas? They say if you take birth as a Brahmin, that is the highest form of birth that one can attain in this world. But the Shastras also explain in relationship to Vaishnavas. So there was a very strong class of Brahmin, they call them Smarta Brahmins, caste Goswamis, like that, who claimed that Brahminical birth is the highest form of birth, and therefore one is born in a Brahmin family, they automatically become a Brahmana, simply by janma, not by karma. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur he wrote one book explaining carefully the difference between Brahmins and Vaishnavas. And there was supposed to be a debate, a big debate, at a place called Midnapur in West Bengal. This was September 9th, 2011. No, let me say 2011. 1911. Go back 100 years. 1911 in Midnapur. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur was about to go to this place, he got rheumatic fever very seriously, and he was bedridden. He couldn't go. So he had a son. His son was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, who also studied this carefully and wrote his own book called Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Maybe you've seen that particular book. And so he said he would go on behalf of his father. Nobody knew who he was. And so he went. And the Brahmins were there, and many common people. There were thousands of people who came for this debate. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was the first speaker. He was known as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then he was Sri Varshavanabi Devi Daiteya. Sri Varshavanabi Devi Daiteya. That was his name. That was his spiritual name given by his spiritual master. He was born Bimala Prasad, but he was initiated Sri Varshavanabi Devi Daita. And so he went, nobody knew who he was. Who is this personality? Anyway, he spoke. And he started glorifying the Brahmanas. And he was saying, if you're born in a Brahmin family, that is the highest form of birth. There's no question about Brahmins being the leader of society. He was quoting verse after verse, glorifying the Brahmins. And the Brahmins were really getting quite, they say, oh, he's on our side. They were liking everything he was saying. But then he took them that far, and then finally he said, yes, but if one is born in a Brahmin family, but they do not become a Vaishnava, then they actually haven't reached the real goal of life. And simply by birth in a Brahmin family does not make a Brahmin a Brahmin. One has to perform the activities of Brahminical culture in order to be qualified as a Brahmin. And he gave practical example that, if you're born in a family of musicians, does that make you a musician? No. You have to actually play the music and be known as a musician by others before you can have that, what we say, adhikarya, that title. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati started to quote other verses. And even if one is born a Sudra, lower, even Panchamanam, below the Sudra, one is born even in a low-class family. If they have developed Brahminical qualities, they should be seen according to their qualities and not according to their birth. The downfall of India is the caste system. The caste system is not wrong, but the vitiated caste system, the corrupted caste system, simply by birth makes everything topsy-turvy. One has to execute the activities according to the varna they're in, and not simply take births and wear a thread and consider themselves to be a Brahmin. one has to perform Brahmanical activities. What are Brahmanical activities? Patan, patan, yajan, yajan, dana, pratigraha. You have to know the scriptures, you have to teach the scriptures. You have to worship the deity form, you have to teach that same worship to yajan. Others, you have to accept charitable gifts, and you also give in charity. These are the 6 activities of Brahminical culture. One who performs these activities, despite their birth, is considered to be a Brahmin, not simply by janma. And so, after going carefully through the Shastras, the Brahmins were so mortified they couldn't speak. They just turned and left. The crowd became so happy that they were thinking, who is this great sadhu? They wanted to touch his feet. And the crowd rushed to grab his feet, but the police were there to stop them because there was a bit of a turmoil. Hundreds of people rushing to touch your feet. So what they did, they took him in a back room and they washed his feet and they threw all the water on the people. And that way they got the mercy. So this Bhaktivinoda Thakur, using also his son Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who became later the spiritual master of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, established the principle of true Vaishnava philosophical teachings, which had been lost after the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared in 1534, and by the time of the 1600s, the 17th century, practically many of his teachings were lost. And people were claiming to be followers and coming up with ideas that were contrary to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. And then this went on through the 1700s, 1600s, 1700s, and it wasn't until Bhaktivinoda Thakur reawakened Lord Chaitanya's true teachings, which is the foundation of our Krishna consciousness movement in the world today. So if you want to know a little bit of the history, this is it. That it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur who started, again, to carefully study Lord Chaitanya's movement. People were saying that this is the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But what he did, he had some doubts. He was on the eastern side of the Ganga. So he was studying maps, and he studied maps for months and months. Finally, through studying of maps, he somewhat came up with the idea that this is not Lord Chaitanya's birthplace. And then he had a vision, and in his vision, he saw a light coming from this one place. And in that light, it was a place where there was so many tulsi plants. Tulsi plants had grown profusely on this big mound in this one area, and it was owned by some Islamic people. He concluded by studying the maps and by that vision he had that this was the actual appearance place of Mahaprabhu. And then after establishing that and erecting a temple there to honor Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then his preaching started to develop more and more. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who was a real stalwart preacher, took Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings and made it a worldwide principle. It was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who sent people around the world to bring Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement to the Western world. Because there's a statement in the Shastras that explains that in every town and village, the Lord's name will be chanted. But people had misinterpreted it, or not misinterpreted, yes, misinterpreted, but given it a different interpretation. They were saying every town and village in India. But it wasn't. It was every town and village in the world. So it was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and the empowerment of his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, to whose disappearance day is today, that really spread Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement all around the world. And it was our spiritual master's divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who took those teachings of Mahaprabhu and brought them to America. And from there, it spread all over the world. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a grihastha. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was a Naistiki brahmachari. He was a strict brahmachari his whole life, and he never married, and he took sannyas But his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the vanguard, the person who brought the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the Western world, was a Grihastha. Sometimes we think, the Grihastha is in a lower position, therefore they cannot, do anything very significant in spreading Krishna consciousness. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had 13 children. Some people say 10, some people say 13. He had 13 children. He had a big position within the British Raj. He was a magistrate. And he would write so many books. But still, he was able to influence the entire, Vaishnav culture and move it forward in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, which shows that Grihe Tako Bole Tako Sabda Hari Bole Dako. It doesn't matter which ashram you're in. There's no limitation. It's just a matter of taking the message. Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, was a Grihastha. He took sannyas in 1959 at the age of 64. It wasn't until he was 64 that he took the sannyas order of life. He was a Grihastha. Of course, he left his Grihastha ashram around 1930 something, late 30s, early 40s, I think. I'm not exactly sure. But most of it, he had probably about 5 children, three boys and 2 girls. And, no one expected him to do what he did. Everyone was thinking, because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had created an army of sannyasis. There was at least 60 sannyasis that were preaching all over India, establishing Mahaprabhu's movement throughout. You can even go to southern India in the Trivandrum temple. I think it's in Kerala. Trivandrum? Yeah, in Kerala. You'll see Mahaprabhu's footprints there. It's in that temple. It was established by his devotees when they preached all over India, from Kanyakumari all the way up to Jagannath Puri. So there was an army of sannyasi, and no one thought that this Grihastha would do anything. He was a good manager, like that. He was a good writer, but to actually go and start a worldwide movement, it was inconceivable. But what it shows is that Grihastha life is not limited. We may be struggling from day to day in order to maintain our household. And that's the way it is in Western culture. Western culture keeps you busy with things you don't need. It's just busy, right? You remember your life in India, many of you, right? Were born in India, how simple life was. You had time for each other. Now you don't have time for each other. We have to have a meeting to start to meet each other. Right? Life has become so complicated, right? And just to carry on day-to-day of affairs, you have to make so many arrangements. Right? Village life. Of course, we don't say you go back to village life, but you can see the beauty of village life. People weren't poor. This idea of India was poor. They weren't poor. Prabhupada said, you're rich and you're unhappy, and people are poor and they're happy. So what's better? To be a little less rich and be happy? Or be rich and be miserable? So the village life was simple life. People had, they had their family, they had their place, they kept it clean, they had their food, they had time for Krishna consciousness. Right? When you used to go to sleep at night, what would you hear? You wouldn't hear, about, what's his name? I just lost his name. Anyway, you would hear Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, or Mahabharata, right? Now what do? You hear cartoons, so the whole life has changed. Western culture is a reverse in the aesthetic and moral and spiritual values of the human being. It's simply interested in 2 things: sense gratification and money. That's all. Make money, enjoy your senses. That's all. That's the whole Western culture. Therefore, it's a misculture. When someone asks, Gandhi, what do you think of Western culture? Mahatma Ji, what do you think of? He said, I think it's a good idea. They should become cultures. Yeah. So money and economic development doesn't make a person, It's moral and aesthetic and spiritual values that are the essence of a person's existence. Morality is the foundation of life, and spirituality is the essence of life. Without the foundation, the essence doesn't really manifest. And so people are sacrificing morality and civility in order to get money. Right? And what is money? Nowadays, you don't even have any. Nobody has any money. It's just paper. Right? What is money? Money is actually gold, silver, precious metals, land. If you have livestock, if you have land, you're rich. Wealth is agriculture. Do you actually, if you have a piece of paper, you might use it, but if the government decides not to let you use it anymore, you don't have anything. So nobody has any money nowadays. This paper stuff is just artificial. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, on the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, coming from his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, is bringing the Vedic culture worldwide. It's the only culture that has any meaning. Materialistic culture, Western culture, is simply headed in the wrong direction. It's darkness. And therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is honored as one of the most formidable saints in the Vaishnava culture, because he somehow blended Western ideas with Indian spirituality. And in that, he made Indian spirituality more easily understandable by the Western mind. And many of his books were written in that vein, like that. So today is his disappearance day, but I really wanted to focus on the fact that he was a grihasta. And that's the important thing, is that, of course, most of you are all family people. You have your occupations, you have your children, you have your houses. So that becomes your focus. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, although he had such a big family, a responsible position in government, and he did so much to spread Krishna consciousness. So one is not limited by ashram like that. So therefore one has to follow carefully the principles that make up the ashram. Just like, what are the main principles of Grihastha ashram? What does the word ashram mean? Ashram means a place of spiritual cultivation. There's Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, Sannyasa ashram, and Brahmachari ashram. Each of them have the same goal, is to become Krishna conscious. But each of the principles, each of the ashrams, has a set of principles that are slightly different than another ashram. So what are the main principles of Grihastha ashram? The main principle of Grihastha ashram is to give charity. That is the main thing. Because the idea that this is mine, because you say, this is my wife, this is my husband, these are my children, these are my possession, this is my home. Janasamohamiyam aham lameti. What does that mean? That this idea of I and mine is based on the bodily conception of life. We are not these bodies. We are spiritual beings. We all know that. This is a philosophy we've heard so many times, and it's the foundation for the practice of spirituality. We live in the material world, and we take on these identities that are what we say superficial or extraneous to our real identity. And we think in that way. So nobody's anybody's father. Nobody is anybody's mother. Nobody is anybody's friend. These are all designations that we take on according to our position in the material world. And they change. They change. You have your child in this life, and next life that child may be your father, and you may be their child. So who's the father, who's the child? Like that. So we're always switching material roles, life after, even in this life, we change our roles like that. So this idea of I and mine, and Bhaktivinoda in the scriptures actually say that I am a man, I am a woman, I am Indian, I am American, and then mine, this is mine. So I principle is a lot stronger than the mine principle. We think in terms of me, but then again, our minds, the mind principle is changing. This is mine, and then it's not mine. But the I principle is more steady. But both of these principles are based on the body. Therefore, they're extraneous to the soul. Therefore, in Grihastha life, it's easy. I'll scratch that word out. It's not easy. It's natural to think like that. It's natural to think I and mine like that. But the Shastras say that actually, Jivya Sarupa Krishna Nichides, that who is our real identity, and who are these persons who we call father, mother, children, friends like that? They're Krishna's parts and parcels. But we have a responsibility to act in the role that we play within this material world. We cannot neglect that responsibility. We have that responsibility, but we have to see beyond the I and mind principle into the spiritual reality that that child is Krishna's part and parcel. That mother, that wife or husband belongs to Krishna, not to me. Like that. That is the reality. Like that. So in Grihastha life, therefore, if we focus on this I and mind principle, we will always be making mistakes and always not seeing things clearly. So what is the principle that helps us we understand what is our role? We have to play the role. I have to play the role as a father. I have to play the role as a husband. I play the role as a wife. I play the role as a mother. I play the role as a child or like that. I play that role and I play it good. I put my heart into it, but I know beyond the role, I'm something else. Because the roles are also temporary like that. But in order to practice spirituality, we have to be responsible materially. We cannot reject and neglect our material responsibility and expect to be transcendental. Therefore, in that role, we become expert, just like it says in the Shastra. What is it? Patina Shasya, what is it? Guru Nashasya, Svajano Natasya, Patina Shasya,
Pitana Shashadna Patina Shasya.
Namochaya Sabha Petra Umitron. That one should not become a father, one should not become a mother, one should not become a guru, one should not become a teacher, unless they can give their followers, children, students, direction and towards the goal of life. Strong statements in the Bhagavatam, 5.5, 5th canto, 5th chapter, verse number 18. And it explains that the responsibility of playing these roles are great. We cannot neglect the responsibility. But what is our first responsibility? Is to become Krishna conscious. That's our first responsibility. And when we put our emphasis on that, then it becomes easy to understand how to do whatever else we need to do in order to live in this world. Like that. So, therefore, the first responsibility of a grihastha is to give in charity. Why? Because the idea is that in the I and mind principle is so strong in grihastha life that we start thinking this is mine, this is I. By serving Vaishnavas, especially serving great saints, one starts to make progress in grihastha ashram. Therefore, Prabhupada writes in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 3rd canto, 21st chapter, verse number 31, that if you're a grihastha, you should open your home to the sannyasis, to the gurus, to the traveling mendicants, and whole programs. Hear about Krishna, take nice Krishna prasadam, and have kirtan and glorification of Krishna. Then the home becomes what is called a temple. The home is no longer, see, there's griha medi and grihasta. Griha medi means one who thinks in terms of I and mine. This is mine, this is mine, this is I, this is I, this is I. But grihasta means that one actually lives according to religious principles and makes the goal of life Krishna. Okay. And these principles are, charity is the first step. One should give in charity, like that. One should also practice worshiping the Lord in his deity form, like that. Of course, if you're initiated, then you get permission from your spiritual master to worship deities, like that. If you're not initiated, you may set up an altar within your house and do daily puja, like that. But grihastas must do puja. It's a must. It's just as important as our chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Why? Because we have so much contact with the external energy in the day-to-day struggle for maintaining our home and our family, that unless we come home and worship the deity regularly with our family and with friends, our minds will not be able to be fixed on Krishna. So therefore, being in the home means to make the home a temple. Offer all your food and come together with your family and other families and chant Hare Krishna. And hear discussions on Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Take prasadam together. And what's the last one? Worship the deity together. Like that. 4 things that make up grihastha. Like Prabhupada mentions it in Bhagavad Gita in the 13th chapter, verses 8 through 12. He talks about these 4 things. A husband and wife, he says, should chant together, take prasadam together, hear philosophy together, and worship the deity together. And that will make what we say the home a place of worship, like that. And then one sees one wife, family members, not simply as mine, but as Krishna. They belong to Krishna. Therefore, I have to serve them nicely because that will please Krishna. I'm serving my wife, I'm serving my children, I'm serving my husband. Why? Because they belong to Krishna. And if I treat them nicely, Krishna will be pleased. Like that. So we see our relationship in the family as an opportunity to serve Krishna and please Krishna through that service. So sometimes we get caught up in the day-to-day routines of family life and we forget about the actual understanding of the relationships. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a vanguard in establishing Lord Chaitanya's movement in the Western world because he showed that even in Grihastha ashram, one can do wonderful things to serve the Lord. There's no limitation, there's no, what we say, disqualification like that. Another principle, we mentioned giving in charity and worshiping the deity. One should go on pilgrimage. One should visit the Holy Land, go to places of pilgrimage such as Vrindavan, Sridham Mayapur, Rameshwaram, so many places, Tirupati, what else? What are so many other holy places? So many. India is full of holy places. Of course, in the Western world, the holy places we have here are the temples. That's all. You can visit temples, and they're considered to be holy places. Go where the deity is worshipped nicely. This last year we went on Yatra, and we went to Hampi, and we went to Udupi. And we just spent 10 days there. I was amazed to see the place in Hampi, and how beautiful it is. It's a mystical place, a place where Hanuman appeared in the world. We went to the place where his birth site was, all the way on the top. It's called Anjana Parvata. Have you been there? Yeah, Anjana Parvata. 600 stairs all the way up to the top. We ran up, got to the top, and there's a beautiful deity of of Anjana holding little Hanuman in her arms. It's so beautiful. And there's deities of Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanumanji there. And there's other deities. And then you look over, they can see for like hundreds of miles. It's that, and look, it's like this mystical atmosphere. And then there's all these rocks formations. People say that this is the place where Hanuman used to play as a little baby in these rocks for his toys. Big rocks. The rocks are like 5 times as big as that Mridanga. Huge. So going to holy places, and just like it's mentioned, there are 9 processes of devotional service. One is Pada Sevana. Pada Sevana means serving the lotus feet, and one of the ways we honor that Pada Sevana is visiting holy places. And of course, we should go to the temples here, and that is also visiting holy places, but actually going to the sacred places where the Lord's pastimes were performed. Like that. So this is actually not an option. It should be done. And sometimes you think, oh, if I got the money, I'll go. No, get the money. Krishna will arrange for you to get it if you have the desire. And visit these holy places like that. So these are the visiting holy places, worshiping the Lord in his Archivigraha form, and giving in charity, like that. These are the main activities of Grihastha Ashram. And then a place becomes a Grihastha Ashram, not a place just to live. You can live anywhere, right? But you can only worship if you establish worship. Like that. So and then the deity, because you know the culture in India, years ago, sometimes they would settle a court dispute by going before the deity, right? And then you have to speak in front of the deity. You couldn't lie in front of the deity. And that's how the court cases would be, determined. And the deity would be the witness. So the deity becomes, for Grihasthas, actually the foundation. When you wake up in the morning, and you come and you see your deity, and then of course you wake him up, or your deities, and then you bathe them, you dress them, you actually feed them, and you offer nice prayers. You can also sing kirtan like that, and to put them to rest. And Krishna's there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come in the form of his deity. Why? The deity is a mercy manifestation of the Lord. The Lord doesn't have to appear in the world for his deity, because the deity is simply for us. That's all. In order for us to worship the Lord in that particular way, where we can see the Lord and do personal service to the Lord, the Archivigraha manifestations of the Lord have come into this world. They're very merciful. So the deity is very kind. And then, you have your arti. You can also offer arti, and then all the food you eat, you offer on the altar. It becomes prasad. Eating prasad is different than eating bhoga. Bhoga means that which is not offered to the Lord, or which is not offerable to the Lord. Either one. What is that verse? Yasya sasasitu shantu munchite sarvakil visa munchite te agam papam ye pachakma nakaranam. The devotees of the Lord are free from all sinful activities because they eat food first offered in sacrifice. Those who eat food for sense gratification verily eat only sin. This is Srimad Bhagavad Gita 3:13. So in that verse it says that unless we offer food, we get sinful reactions, even if it's vegetarian. You have to eat food offered to the Lord. Therefore, it's simple. We offer 3 prayers. We offer one prayer to Srila Prabhupada, one prayer to Lord Chaitanya, and one prayer to Krishna. And then we say it 3 times. And we offer the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We wait for 10 minutes, and then the food is prasad. Sometimes we would demonstrate to Westerners. You want to see something become from material to spiritual? And then we would make an offering of food, and we say, there it is. You just watched it. Did you see it? We change something material into spiritual. Prashadam is spiritual. Why? Because Krishna accepts it. How does he accept it? He accepts our bhakti. And then he eats the food. He says, Patram pushram phalam tayam yome bhakti pranachati taraham, what is it? Bhakti paritam asnami. Asnami payatat manaha. Asnami means I eat. Krishna says, I eat it. He's not just sitting there. Of course, but he's kind. He leaves it for you. If he eats it all, then you get nothing. I remember in 1996, there was an epidemic around the world that the deities were eating all the food. It was happening everywhere. In the Western world, Eastern world, and people were coming to our temples and saying, miracle, miracle. We were telling, what do you mean miracle? He eats every day, but now he's taking it. He's not even leaving you any this time. Yeah, it was happening everywhere. And the deities were actually drinking the milk during the Chaturmasya milk fast. And so that was the Krishna sometimes does that just to show that, I'm here. That's for the faithless. For those who have no faith, sometimes they need a miracle. But those who have faith know that there's a miracle happening every moment. There's no need to have miracles because just the fact that we can exist in this material world is a miracle. That's Krishna's mercy. So, therefore, Grihastha life is, one doesn't have to take sannyas, one doesn't have to leave their ashram, one simply has to follow the principles of the ashram, that's all. There's great challenges in Western society because of the way this society is structured. The society is structured in such a way as to divide people into smaller and smaller units. And that's against the whole idea of community and culture, and also against spirituality. Because all of you know, you all grew up in more like a community, what is they call extended families? Everyone is there. It says in the Shastra, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a child. Now we try to raise a child, just, mother and father doing struggle so hard just to raise children. But with extended families, you have the relatives, you have the grandmother, friends. Child gets so much affection from so many different people and grows up more healthy and more normal. So Western society is a real challenge. Therefore, we have to create community, even within this community-less culture. So one of the ways to do that is to come together as much as possible. If you can also come together in the morning and have Mangal Arti together, and also maybe hear a little class like that before you go on with your daily activities, that would be a foundation for building community and to help us become more fixed in our practice of spiritual life. So community is the way to go. Of course, it takes some organizing, it takes some planning, and it takes some effort to do it. But if it's done conjointly, with everybody working towards that goal, then it becomes easy. So there's so many things we can say about Grihastha life, about the roles of a woman, the roles of the man, the roles in relationship to all aspects of our role as a woman or a man, like that. But there's a beautiful book you can go online and hear about. It's called The 4 Goals of Family Life. It was written, 4 Goals of Family. It was written by my god sister Jagannath Ishwari. She lives in London, and the book has got great reviews, and it's very Shastra. I did a seminar in Croatia 3 years ago on this, and I took how many pages of notes? 13? Janakinath, how many pages was it? 15. 15 pages of notes on the book, which I'm giving it to Shamsuna so he can give it to you. And it describes the different aspects, Patni Dharma and Pati Dharma. Right? Whereas Pati is husband, and Patni is wife. What is the Dharma of a woman? What is the Dharma of a man? Like, when we know our roles, then we can perform our spiritual life nicely. Okay. Karbadan samskaras, family planning, relationships with, relatives, friends, like that. To favor the husband, to favor the relatives, to favor the wife, like that. Anyway, it's quite extensive. But if you actually get the book, you can go online and you can find it. I think the book is, we went online the other night and we found there was one book there for $2, a used copy. And then, but the book is how much? $30?
35.
35. It's a little expensive, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Okay. So, any questions on Grihastha life, Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Yes.
Maharaj, I have read a little bit about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and most of the life that I read about was primarily after he was 30, or after his later age. But there is not much mention about his younger life, where where the foundations are actually built as a Vaishnava. And
he wrote a biography on himself before he left, while he was living, which describes his younger life. He was a Shakta. I don't know if you heard I said that at the beginning. He was a Shakta. And then he came across a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think that was in around the year 1859. And then from there, his whole vision changed on what is the direction of spirituality. What is the name of that biography of Bhakti?
Seventh Goswami?
No. His own biography on himself starts with a P. I have a copy of it. But the Seventh Goswami, if you get that book, that's the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And there's another one called Hinduism Meets Modernity. Is it Hinduism? Yeah, Hindu Meets Modernity. And it was done by my godmother Sukhabak. It's also the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That's a big book. And that gives you a lot more information than what is available. So, yeah, his life should be studied by Grihastha. Prabhupada called him a Paramahansa Grihastha. How can a Grihastha be a Paramahansa? Well, he was. Because he lived that life, even though he was in family life, but not a neglectful family person. He was very responsible. Okay. Yes.
Maharaj, you were mentioning about community building and doing like Mangalarati together and like that. So the challenge we face here is that because everybody being Grihasthas and with children, so it's very difficult to get time to even meet once a week for like a morning program. So how do we practically kind of fit it in? Because
well, I mentioned is the lifestyle in Western society is very divisive, and everyone is overwhelmed with their own individual responsibilities. So to come together is just like a luxury. It is. It's like a luxury. We're in Vedic culture and people are always together. Everything. It's like, so therefore you have to somehow or other see how to supplant some of the Vedic principles. And the basic thing is to come together as much as possible and hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Build on that. Once you develop that strength of hearing and chanting, then everything else will become easily understandable. But practically speaking, there's certain things you can do to bring it about. I mean, how many families you have in a community, you could have a program every night of the week at different people's houses. Why have it on Sunday? Why not every night? We did Tuesday this week, right? Because I'm here, but why you can do it amongst yourselves? Every night of the week. One person, everyone volunteers. I'll do Wednesday, I'll do Friday, I'll do Tuesday. And then then you have 7 places you go. Different like that. You may not go to all of them, but there's a program every night. And then gradually you can see. It's just the Western lifestyle where everybody's caught up in their little cubbyhole in the box. I have to struggle alone. But that's not civilized society. You just have to get beyond that a little bit. What they do in Chicago is like there's one, I think you have it here a little bit, Carriage Park, this is, right?
Yeah.
You have many families in this area?
Yes.
So every morning, you go over to somebody's house and have Mangal Arti. You can have Mangal Arti at 6 o'clock. It doesn't have to be at 4. It can be at 6. You Mangal Arti, and then you do a little reading of Shastra, and then have some breakfast together and go on with your day-to-day activities. That sets the foundation for the whole day. That's a practical thing you can do. And do things together. I mentioned, you've heard of Weekend Warriors? Weekend Warriors is once a week, all of you go out on books, go out and distribute books. And just go to some places and distribute Prabhupada's books. It's very enlivening. And that helps to build community. Community comes by doing things together. The word cooperation means to operate together. If we depend simply on the leaders for doing everything and everyone else just comes when they can, it's going to be too much of a burden on a few people and everyone else is just dragging along. We all should take responsibility for the yatra. What can I do? What services can I do to make things happen? Take turns cooking, take turns washing the kids, take turns, driving things. You can think of whatever you need to do and then just have services allotted in different ways. These are practical things. Yes, Martha?
Maharaj, I have a question regarding the same. So when people are like individually having, independent ideas, like I have my own independent idea, and I don't follow a specific community rule. So if all of them are like that, how will we come together then?
It doesn't work.
That's what is happening, I feel,
You need a leader to pull everyone together. Someone who is more or less keeping everyone in the right direction. In every group, there's always a leader. Democracy doesn't work. Call it demon crazy. It doesn't work. My opinion, your opinion, this opinion, this opinion. I think, you think. Well, you can have a consensus and discuss things, but then someone has to make a decision how things go on. Once a decision made, then everyone should cooperate with that. So you can have democratic discussion, but ultimately there has to be a group or at least one person who makes the decisions on how things should go on. And that way, this is practical. Yeah. When you try to do something, the more people who work in that direction, the more it happens. And people who pull away from it, they make the whole thing harder. So, cooperation. leadership. It has to be someone, at least one or two people who are more or less focused on bringing things in, making things happen. A leader is not a doer so much, he's a facilitator. He helps everyone else to, has the ideas, has the vision, and also knows how to gather the resources, and everyone else can get the inspiration and the empowerment from him or her to do the work. You have to, without cooperation, nothing goes on. And the thing about cooperation, even if you don't agree, if you cooperate, it works. Why? Because Krishna empowers cooperation. When Krishna sees people are working together to serve nicely, and they're not getting into what we say a lot of unnecessary quarrels, then Krishna empowers that to work. Prabhupada used to say, if you have a way to do something that's 90%, and I have 90% good, and I have a way to do something that's 80% good, then we fight and it's all lost. Better to take either 80 or 90 and cooperate. It's not so important which one you take. So cooperation is the key to moving in a group type of way. Individual expressions comes through services. One can express their individuality in the way they do different types of services.
I have a question. Being a father, what the responsibility towards our kids. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't listen. We may not be able to deliver them in the sense, give them the fullest extent, the Krishna consciousness. So what happened to those fathers?
You just do your best. The most important thing is you become Krishna conscious. Because then you're showing by example what you want them to be. And then from there you practically apply what you know to guiding them and correcting them. But still they have their individuality and they have their what we say independence. Yeah, that's true with anything. But you have to be an example for what you want them to be. That's the most important thing. Your example is the loudest form of preaching. If you're telling them, like maybe sometimes people say, don't smoke. Well, why are you smoking? Because I'm grown up. Well, when I'm grown up, then I can be bad like you. When I'm a kid, I can be good. Then I grow up, I can become bad. No, if you're telling the people don't smoke, just like Prabhupada tells the story of Gandhi. Some lady came with her child to Gandhi and said, Mahatmaji, my son, he's always eating sweets. He eats so many sweets. Can you tell him to stop eating sweets? Gandhi said, come back in 3 days. And then she brought the child back 3 days later, and then Gandhi told the child, don't eat sweets. She said, why didn't you say that 3 days ago? He said, because I was eating sweets. And I stopped in order to give you the lesson. So you can't tell people to do something unless you're actually doing it yourself. So, but they say example is higher than precept. Precept is important, but what you do is more important than what you say. Of course, you should say the same thing you're doing, and you should do the ideal and then speak about it. But if there's a dichotomy between doing and saying, then people are going to see what you do rather than what you say. So just be an example and do your best. Take guidance from others and then just try your best. Children have their independence. They're individuals. The more they grow up, the more they want to exercise that independence. But if you plant the seed when they're young, then they'll use their independence in the right way. That's why it says, education for a child starts in the womb. Doesn't start, 5 or 6. It starts in the womb. Yes.
I have a question. Regarding Krishna consciousness. For example, if I want to tell my friend about Krishna consciousness, what should be my approach in convincing him? At least, to tell him, to deliver what I am thinking about Krishna consciousness.
Well, it depends on the situation on your friend. There's different ways. Mahaprabhu said, wherever you meet, tell them to chant Hare Krishna. That's one way. Give them prashadam. Or explain something. It depends. If they're open, then you can speak whatever you feel. But if they're not open, then you may just give prashadam. Or say if you want to, I think Janakinath we went to the airport the other day, and we were checking in. So there was a lady there. And at the end he said, do you ever get stressed out? He said to the lady. She said, yeah. He said, here, and gave her some. What'd you give her?
It's an app.
It's an app. And he turned it on, and she says, it's got music in it? And he said, yes. She said, okay, I'll do it. So what is it about chanting Hare Krishna, right? So he asked her, do you ever get stressed out? Yeah. So, you want to relieve stress? Chant Hare Krishna. Want to make your stress less? Just chant the holy name. That's the best. So, therefore, there's different ways. You get the feel of who you're talking to, and then you can say different things. The best thing to do is just pray to Krishna. My dear Krishna, what can I say to this person that would help them? And then Krishna will give you the understanding. If you pray like that, you'll get the understanding. Okay.
Another question about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Throughout the day, he accomplished a lot of tasks. Taking care of family, work, his own sadhana, writing books, everything. And we may not be able to reach. How we can improve our lives to do our material things and as well as the spiritual.
Regulation.
Regulation
means organize your day in such a way that you know what you're going to do throughout your day. If your days are different from day to day, plan the day before the day comes. Like tonight, plan tomorrow, and tomorrow night, plan the next day. See your day, but don't just let the day plan you. You know what you're going to do every time. When you're going to chant, when you're going to read, when you're going to take care of business. The most effective people are the people who are regulated. The more regulated you are, the more effective you are in whatever you're doing. It's true. That's a truism. And the more you can get done also if you're regulated. So if you have a situation where your days are different, then you just have to plan them out before. But if you have a routine, then you just follow that routine. And if things come into your routine, then you should be ready for what we say, for changes that come, and you can plan, you can work with them. If you get too rigid in your regulation, then when situations come, you may not be able to deal with them properly. But the most important thing is, just like in corporations, they have this thing. How to become efficient. So you sit down, you write down 4 things. What is essential? What is important? What is non-essential? what is not important. So we can put our day-to-day life in that. What are the essentials? Essentials means things I must do. Important things are also things that I must do, but sometimes I miss them. But still, I always try to do them. What is non-essential, I can do it or not do it. And what is not important, let it go. And you see this, you might have a big category of non-important. Then you have so much more extra time. Like that, so. The essentials are you have to chant Hare Krishna early. Early. Not just, because the early rounds are the real rounds. The rest of the ones that are right throughout the day are, we should do them anyway, but still, it's usually not, we're not planning properly if we don't chant most of our rounds in the morning. If not all of them, if we can. If you really want to increase your spiritual life, here's what you do it. Work on increasing the quality of your rounds by chanting them earlier also. Early rounds are key to becoming Krishna consciousness throughout the day. If you can sit down and chant 16 rounds, it might be hard if you have a family occupation, but if you can do it, it's ideal. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Chandramouli Maharaj ki
Jai. So we have the seminar notes. I give it to Shamsuna. If anybody wants them, these are PowerPoint statements on that book, 4 Goals of Life.
Hare Krishna. So we would like to thank everybody for assembling this evening for the special program with Maharaj. And at this time, we would like to thank Maharaj for being with us here in Pittsburgh for a good few days and helping us in our spiritual journey. Yeah. So Maharaj has been taking care of us for several years now. And we're very grateful that in his travels and in his trips, in his preaching programs here in the US, Maharaj has kept Pittsburgh on the map and giving us so much time and association and care. So we're really, really grateful to Maharaj for this. So let us all thank His Holiness Chandramouli Maharaj by loudly chanting Hare Krishna 3 times. His Holiness Chandramouli Maharaj ki jai. So one more announcement: this Sunday, the Sunday lecture will be given by His Grace Jankinath Prabhu. So Jankinath Prabhu will be here with us for our Sunday program at the church. Yeah. And as you know, Jankinath Prabhu is a wonderful Vaishnava from London. He's been practicing Krishna consciousness for several years. He is a disciple of Maharaj. And last few years now, he's been coming to the US and traveling with Maharaj. So Maharaj was mentioning that he's a very wonderful teacher. So we will all be very fortunate to hear from him this coming Sunday. Please make it a point to come for the program. And also we'll have Shiv Prabhu who will be leading us into Kirtans. So those of you who are there early in the program, with the opportunity to chant with Prabhuji. So we'll be leading Kirtans on Sunday and taking us into the special journey with the Holy Name. So please take advantage of this Sunday's program when these sadhus are with us. They're here to actually nourish us and inspire us through their example of Krishna consciousness. So please take advantage of that. And also this Saturday is 24-hour Kirtan in Vrindavan. So another great opportunity to hear and chant with special devotees who are coming from different parts of the world to chant the holy names. And hundreds of devotees will be assembling together. So it's a very powerful means to absorb in the chanting and the hearing of the holy name. So this will happen at New Vrindavan. So please try, stay connected with devotees, and if you need guides, devotees from here will be going. Please take advantage of the opportunity. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And also, one more announcement. So here's a beautiful book that is written by Maharaj. This has very inspiring articles and realizations of Maharaj's teaching to those people who have been in the prisons in America. So it's a very wonderful book. We have Shiv Prabhu and Jankina Prabhu. They have copies of this. They can give more details about the book. So please take a copy home with you, and it will give you a wonderful insight into how Krishna consciousness is so relevant to everybody, including us. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Ram Prabhu Maharaj.